Alright, yeah, we're live.
Alright, Shalom, this is the I.S.U.P.K. UK. Now we're doing the closing of the Purim class. We're going to get into Purim. We're going to start off with the book of Esther. Give me a second. Alright, get me the book of Esther, chapter 2 and verse, where can we start off at? Verse 7.
Alright, the book of Esther, the second chapter and the 7th verse. And he brought up Hadassah, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter.
Now this is talking about Mordecai. Mordecai brought up Esther. Mordecai brought up Esther like she was his own daughter. Go ahead.
For she either had a father nor other, and the maid was fair and beautiful.
So it says Esther was fair and beautiful, and Esther, she didn't have no mother and father because her mother and father were dead. So Mordecai brought her up like she was his own. Go ahead.
Whom Mordecai, when her father and her other were dead, took her for his own daughter.
So Mordecai took her for his own daughter. Go ahead.
Verse 8. So it came to pass, when the king's commandment and his decree was heard, and when many Adens were gathered together.
So it says the king's decree was heard. Now the king's decree was alright then. He sent his chamberlains, which is like your officers, your servants that work in the king's quarters. He sent them out to do a job, find all the beautiful women. Go ahead.
When any Adens were gathered together unto Shushan the palace, to the custody of Haggai, that Esther was brought also unto the king's house, to the custody of Haggai, keeper of the Iman. Verse 9. And the maiden pleased him, and she obtained kindness of him, and he speedily gave her things for purification.
So she pleased him, man. He liked her. He liked her. She pleased him. He gave her things for purification. You're gonna read what these things will. Go ahead.
Which such things as belonged to her, and 7 Adens, which were meet to be given her out of the king's house, and he preferred her and her maids unto the best place of the house of Iman.
Go ahead.
Verse 10. And Esther had showed her people. So Esther had not showed her people nor her kindred, for Mordecai had charged her that she should not show it.
So Mordecai charged her like, look, don't tell them who you are, don't tell them your kindred, your family, your nationality, don't tell them. Go ahead.
Verse 11. And Mordecai called every day, so he walked every day before the court of the woman's house to know how Esther did and what should become of her.
So Mordecai went every day. Mordecai was always outside the king's gate and so forth, walking to see how Esther was doing and see what had become of her, meaning to see how she was getting on and so forth. Go ahead.
Verse 12. Now when every maid's turn was come to go in to King Ahasuerus, after that she had been 12 months, according to the manner of Iman, for so were the days of the purification accomplished, to wit, 6 months with oil of myrrh, 6 months with sweet odors.
So imagine she's washing in these things for 6 months. She should be smelling real sweet. As soon as she walks in the king's court, he's gonna smell it all the way from wherever he is. So that was that's what they'll do for the purification. So she'll be smelling real sweet. She watched him what for 6 months.
It's like a come 6 months of
And Mer smells beautiful, man. So imagine Esther's been in that for 6 months, and she walks into the king's court and she's smelling like that, and she's been in it for 6 months, not a week, not a day, 6 months. Go ahead.
So, and with other things for the purifying of women.
Go ahead.
Thus came every maiden unto the king, whatsoever she desired was given her, to go with her out of the house of the women unto the king's house.
One sec, let me find out where we jump to. Jump to verse 16.
Alright, the book of Esther chapter 2 and verse 16. So Esther was taken unto King Ahasuerus into the house oil in the 10th month, which is the month Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign. And the king loved Esther above all women.
And the king loved Esther above all women, man. Because Esther was beautiful, he loved her above all women. You see how Obama loves Michelle above all women? That's how this king loved Esther above all women. Go ahead.
And she obtained grace and favor in his sight more than the urgings.
So, more than all the other young women, Esther obtained grace and favor in his sight. I mean, he looked to Esther, man, and he took a liking to her, favored her over all the women and so forth. Go ahead.
So that he set the royal crown upon her head.
He did what?
Set the royal crown upon her head.
And he set the royal crown upon Esther's head. Now this is when Esther was becoming queen. He set the royal crown upon her head. Go ahead.
And made her queen instead of Vashti.
And he made her queen instead of Vashti. Now we read what happened with Vashti yesterday. How she refused to come at the king's commandment. So the king said, no longer shall Vashti come into the king's place. And he sent for other women, and this is why Esther was crowned queen at this present moment. Go ahead.
Verse 18. Then the king made a great feast unto all his princes and his servants.
Verse 20.
Verse 20. Esther had not yet showed her kindred nor her people, as Mordecai had charged her. For Esther did the commandment of Mordecai, like as when she was brought up with him. In those days, while Mordecai sat in the king's gate.
So it says in those days, while Mordecai sat in the king's gate. Now the king's gate is like you have the gate, then you have like a path, then you have the inner court. Now Mordecai always sat in the king's gate. And the reason Mordecai was at the king's gate is because he used to come and check on Esther from time to time. So when Mordecai sat in the king's gate, he heard something while he was in the king's gate. Read on.
In the king's gate, two of the king's chamberlains, Bigthan and Teresh, of those which kept the door, were wroth.
No, it says two of the chamberlain, which is like the king's officers who worked for the king, says they was wroth. Go ahead.
Sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus.
They sought to what?
Lay hands on King Ahasuerus.
So they sought to lay hands on the king. They sought to kill him. They sought to kill King Ahasuerus. Go ahead.
Verse 22. And this thing was known to Mordecai.
So because these men, these two chamberlains, they was in charge of the gates, the doors. So because Mordecai, when you read it, it says Mordecai was at the king's gate. Because he used to go to the king's gate to check up on Esther. Mordecai was at the king's gate at the time, and he heard the conversation that the two chamberlains were having. Go ahead.
Who told it unto Esther the queen.
And then Mordecai told it unto Esther the queen. Now Mordecai heard that they wanted to lay hands on the king, and Mordecai went and told it unto Esther, and then Esther went and told it unto the king. Go ahead.
And Esther certified the king thereof in Mordecai's name. Verse 22. And when the inquisition was made of the matter, it was found out thereof.
So they made some inquiries to see, alright then, is this true? Do the king's men, are these two of the king's men, his chamberlains, two of his officers that work for him, did they really want to kill him? So they made some inquiries, looked into it and so forth, and the thing was found out to be true that they wanted to kill him. Go ahead.
They were both hanged on a tree.
And then when they found out it was true, those two men were hanged on the tree. So they was hanged on the tree for wanting to kill the king. Go ahead.
And it was written in the book of the Chronicles of the King.
Go ahead, next chapter.
In Esther 3:1. After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above all princes that were with him.
So here Haman got promoted. Haman got promoted to right hand man, and he was over everybody. Only person he was on wasn't over was the king. Go ahead.
Verse 2. And the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him.
So they reverenced Haman. This is key because they reverenced Haman. They bowed and reverenced him. Go ahead.
But Mordecai bowed not.
It says, but Mordecai bowed not. Like Mordecai didn't respect him. Mordecai didn't respect him. How Haman was power hungry and wanted the respect. Mordecai didn't respect him. Go ahead.
Nor did reverence him.
And Mordecai didn't reverence him. Mordecai must have pushed up his face at him, cut his hair, and turned his back at him. Didn't show no respect whatsoever. So Haman's thinking, don't you know that I'm second in command? Who are you? Who are you? Just a slave? Because all these other nations look at us like we're just slaves. Kind of like today, you turn your back on a white man, they look down on you and thinking, who the hell do you think you are to do that? Same thing happened to, what's the brother's name that did stop for the white man that was telling him to stop?
Trayvon Martin.
Yeah, same like Trayvon Martin didn't stop for a white man and he killed him. Now, this is what Haman wants to do to Mordecai, because Mordecai didn't reverence him how he expected him to. Because people look at us like, oh, these people are slaves and they have to worship us and do what we say. But Mordecai didn't do that. Mordecai didn't respect him. Mordecai didn't reverence him. Go ahead.
Verse 3. Then the king's servants, which were in the king's gate, said unto Mordecai, why transgressest thou the king's commandment?
Now, they said, all right then, why are you transgressing the king's commandments? It's the king's commandment that you reverence Haman, because he's right hand man, he's second in charge. And they asked him, why are you transgressing the king's commandments? Why aren't you doing what the king requires you to do? Go ahead. Verse
4. Now it came to pass, when they had spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them.
And they spoke daily to Mordecai, like, oh, respect Haman, man, his right hand man, do as it says, respect him, reverence him. And it says, Mordecai hearkened not, meaning Mordecai weren't taking it in. Mordecai's thinking, I ain't gonna respect him, I ain't gonna reverence him. He hearkened not, meaning he ain't listening. Go ahead.
That they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matters would stand.
So they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matters would stand, whether to see, alright then, what's going to be done with him? Go ahead.
For he had told them that he was a Jew.
And he told these men that he was a Jew. Go ahead. And everybody hates us, the Israelites, everybody hates the Jews. Go ahead.
Verse 5. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did reverence him, then was Haman full of wrath.
It says, then was Haman full of wrath. You know he was full of wrath? Because Mordecai didn't reverence him, Mordecai didn't respect him. And he sees it as, who's this nigger that's not going to respect me? I'm the king's right hand man, I'm royalty, and this man's a slave, he's in slavery, he's not respecting me. Haman looked at it like a big disrespect. Haman looked at it like, this nigga needs to be hanged for this, who does he think he is? He looked at it like, I'm right under the king, and this man is way beneath me, and he's not showing the respect he's supposed to show me. So Haman was rough, looking at Mordecai's side, was like, who do you think you are? Don't you know who I am? Go ahead.
Verse 6. And he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai.
And he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai, man. He was thinking about him and laying hands on him. Go ahead.
Alone, for they had showed him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus.
So Haman fought to destroy all the Jews, which was throughout all the what?
Throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus.
And Ahasuerus, he ruled from India to Ethiopia, right? Yeah, he ruled from India to Ethiopia. So all the Jews which was in those provinces, all the Jews which was in those lands where this king reigned, Haman sought to destroy every last one of them. Haman hated the Jews, and Haman sought, you know what? Under this king's reign, because this king reigned from India to Ethiopia, Haman was second in command, and Haman thought, you know what? I'm going to destroy all the Jews which is under this king's authority in his provinces. Go ahead.
Verse 7, in the first month, that is the month Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast
jump to verse 8. Go to
verse 8. And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad.
So now Haman was talking to the king. He said there's a certain people scattered abroad. Now you know who those people are who scattered abroad. That's us, man. 12 tribes of Israel, we scattered abroad. So Haman said to the king, there's a certain people scattered abroad. Go ahead.
And dispersed among the people.
And he said dispersed amongst the people, which is us. Go ahead.
In all the provinces of thy kingdom.
In all the provinces of thy kingdom, meaning that all these people are scattered between India and Ethiopia, in all the provinces of your kingdom, meaning all the places where you rule, there's Jews scattered from India to Ethiopia. Go ahead.
And their laws are diverse from all people.
And they said their laws are diverse from all peoples. Because you see, our laws is diverse from everybody's on the face of the earth. Now, our laws, we have laws in this Bible, laws, statutes, and commandments. Now, the laws that we have is diverse to everybody else's. We ain't allowed to worship no idols. We ain't allowed to eat no pork. Whereas these other nations, they're allowed to do whatever they want. So Haman was basically saying their laws are diverse. They're the opposite to us. The good for nothing, we might as well get rid of them. That's what Haman was basically saying. Go ahead.
Either keep they the king's laws.
He said their laws are diverse, and neither do they keep the king's laws. So he's in there speaking to the king. He's gassing up the kingdom. He's trying to make the king be on his side, to give him the decree to go and wipe out all the Jews. Go ahead.
Therefore, it is not for the king's profit to offer them.
So he said, therefore, it's for the king's profit not to suffer them, not to allow them. And he didn't want us to exist. Haman wanted us to cease from existing. So he went to the king and said to the king, well, they don't keep your commandments. Their laws is diverse to everybody else's. Let's destroy them. Let's get rid of them. Go ahead.
Verse 9, if it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed.
So after he gassed up the king, he said, if it please you, let it be written that they may be destroyed. And he wanted the king to write it, because once the king writes a letter and then he seals it with his ring, with his signature, nobody else can't undo it but the king. So he wanted the king to seal it. So they would post the letter throughout all the provinces, throughout India to Ethiopia, and all of them would receive that letter to destroy the Jews, and they would see that it's sealed with the king's ring, it's got his signature on there, and that would mean this orders come from the king to destroy the Jews. And they kept the king's commandment. So if the king's commandment was destroy the Jews, they would have destroyed the Jews. So that's why Haman went to the king first to get it approved. Go ahead.
And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hand of those that have charge of the business, to bring into the king's treasuries.
What verse?
Verse 9.
Yeah, go ahead.
Verse 10. And the king took the ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy.
So the king took the ring off his hand and he gave it to Haman as to say, alright then, do as you will, whatever pleases you, whatever you want to do, go do what you have to, go ahead.
Verse 11, and the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, the people also, to do with them as it seemeth good to thee.
And it says, to do with them as it seemeth good to thee. Now what seemed good to Haman was to kill all the Jews throughout all the province, kill all the Jews throughout this kingdom that was there serving out their slavery. That seemed good to Haman, so that's what Haman wanted, to have all the Jews killed. And then when we read later on, you're going to see why we do Purim, but read on.
Verse 12, then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month.
Now then, when the king's scribes called, now a scribe is someone who writes something. Now the king's scribes were called. So as the king's scribes were called, they was gonna, someone was gonna speak to them and tell them, all right, then I want you to write this, and they was gonna listen and write it down. That's what scribes do. So the scribes came to write down what they was told to write, and then it was gonna be sealed with the king's ring. Then it was gonna be posted all throughout the provinces, and then that was the decree to destroy the Jews. Go ahead.
And there was written according to all that Haman had commanded.
And it was written to all that Haman had commanded. So Haman called these scribes and wrote it. Go ahead.
Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants and to the governors that were over every province.
So they wrote to the top man who was over every province, meaning who the king had leading over the countries which he reigned over. So the letter would go to them, so they would get the letter, they would pass it down to them, and underneath them they would pass it down to their lieutenants, pass it down, so forth. Go ahead.
And to the rulers of every people of every province.
So they passed it on to every rulers of every province. Go ahead.
According to the writing thereof.
According to the writing thereof. Now, on that writing was written to destroy the Jews. Go ahead.
And to every people after their language, in the name of King Ahasuerus was it written.
And it was written in the name of the king. And when something's written in the name of the king, it was a commandment written in the name of the king to destroy the Jews. So they're seeing that, and then they're like, all right, then the kings gave a commandment to destroy these people, and they was ready to carry it out because that commandment came from the king. It was sealed with his signet and the king's ring. Go ahead.
And sealed with the king's ring.
And what?
And sealed with the king's ring.
Sealed with the king's ring, man. Meaning it had the king's signature on there, which means his approved it, his signed it, which means it's what he wants to happen. Go ahead.
And the letter, and the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill.
And that's what was written in the letter. What was written in the letter?
To destroy, to kill.
And that was written in the letter, man. To destroy, to kill. Go ahead.
And to cause to perish.
And to cause to perish. Go ahead.
All Jews.
All what?
All Jews.
All what?
All Jews.
And that's what was written in that letter, to kill and to destroy and cause to perish all Jews. Go ahead.
Even upon the 13th day of the 12th month,
Go ahead.
which is the month Adar, and to take the spoil of them for a prey, the copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people.
Now it says this letter was published unto all people. So this letter went around. This letter reached every province. It was published unto all people. Go ahead.
That they should be ready against that day.
Go ahead.
The post went out, being hastened by the king's commandment.
And the post went out by the king's commandment. Go ahead.
And the decree was given in Shushan, the palace, and the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city Shushan was perplexed.
And the king and Haman sat down to drink. And it says the king and Haman was perplexed, meaning they didn't understand it. Is this for real? Go ahead. Next
Esther
chapter 4:1.
Right, 4:1. When Mordecai perceived all that was done, Mordecai rent his clothes.
So this letter got back to Mordecai. So Mordecai heard what was done, how this letter went through every province, and he rent his clothes. Now, back in the days, we used to rip our clothes when it was going through hard times and so forth. Go ahead.
And put sackcloth with them ashes.
And they put sackcloth on with ashes. So back in the days, you could tell if a brother was going through hard times, was depressed or in some state of mourning, because they would have on sackcloth and ashes. That was what we used to do back then. Like you see today, how you look at someone and you can tell, damn, they're going through hard times. That's how you could tell if they was going through hard times back then, because they would put on sackcloth and you would see them and understand they're going through something hard. Go ahead.
And went out in the midst of the city.
And then he put on this sackcloth. Mordecai put on this sackcloth, was mourning, and he went out into the midst of the city.
And cried with a loud and bitter cry.
And he cried with a loud and bitter cry. Go ahead. Because he read that letter, and you would cry with a loud and bitter cry if you heard the king sent out a decree to destroy your whole family, to kill you and your whole family. You'd cry with a loud and bitter cry. You wouldn't be happy about that. You'd be mourning too. You'd be going through what Mordecai was going through right here. Go ahead.
Loud and bitter cry. And he came before the king's gate, for none might enter into the king's gate.
Now before it said Mordecai used to go in the king's gate. Now it says he came to the king's gate, but he couldn't go in the king's gate at this time because you can't go in the king's gate with sackcloth on. You can't go in the king's gate on with that kind of rough apparel on. So he stayed outside the king's gate. Go ahead. Verse
3, and in every province whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, there was great mourning.
So everywhere where this letter went to destroy the Jews and kill the Jews, there was great mourning. Imagine you get a letter through the post and it tells you, oh, how someone's gonna wipe out your whole family. You're gonna have a heart attack at the door and be in great mourning. That's how Mordecai felt, and that's how all the Jews felt that read that letter. Go ahead.
Among the Jews, and fasting and weeping and wailing, and many in sackcloth and ashes.
So many was in sackcloth and ashes, meaning many was mourning, many was depressed, many was crying. Go ahead.
So Esther's maids and her chamberlains came and told it her. Then was the queen exceedingly grieved, and she.
So Esther's maids and her chamberlains came and told it to her. Now chamberlains is like officers, people who's under you, who work for you, and so forth. Go ahead.
And she sent raiment to clothe Mordecai.
And she sent raiment to clothe Mordecai, because Mordecai was mourning in sackcloth. Go ahead.
And to take away his sackcloth from him.
So she sent raiment, decent clothes, like for Mordecai to get dressed and pick himself up and take off that sackcloth. Go ahead.
But he received it not.
But Mordecai didn't receive those clothes, man. Mordecai would rather stay in that sackcloth because he knew what they wanted to do to him and his people. So Mordecai would rather stay in that sackcloth. Go ahead.
Verse 5, then called Esther for I.S.U.P.K, one of the king's chamberlains, whom he had appointed to attend upon her.
So Esther called this man who was one of the kings, who worked for the king, and he appointed this king to check up on Esther. So, no, not this king, I mean the king appointed this man to check up on Esther, so that was his job, one of the chamberlains. Go ahead.
And gave him commandment to Mordecai to know what it was and why it was.
Go ahead.
So I.S.U.P.K went forth to Mordecai unto the street of the city, which was before the king's gate, and Mordecai told him of all that had happened unto him.
And then Mordecai told him all of what had happened unto him and about the sum of money that Haman was willing to pay and everything with Haman. Go ahead.
And the money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasuries for the Jews to destroy them. Also, he gave a copy of the writing of the decree.
So Mordecai had a copy of this letter as well, which was signed with the king's ring. So Mordecai had a copy of it, and Mordecai gave the letter to this man who was appointed over Esther, so he could take that letter and then bring it back to Esther. Go ahead.
That was given at Shushan to destroy them.
And Shushan is it's a place in Iran, I believe. Yeah, Shushan's a place in Iran. Go ahead.
To destroy them unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should not go in unto the king to make supplication unto him.
What verse you at?
Verse 8.
Verse 8. Give me a couple minutes. Yeah, go ahead.
To make supplication unto him and to make requests before him.
So he charged Esther to go into the king, because remember, Mordecai raised Esther because her parents died, so Mordecai raised her like his own daughter. So Mordecai was giving her commandments and orders, do it this way, do it that way, do it this way, do it that way. So Mordecai said, you know what, go into the king and make supplication, man. Try and spare our people, because their plan is to wipe out our people. So Mordecai passed on that order. Go ahead.
And I.S.U.P.K came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. And Esther spake unto I.S.U.P.K and gave him commandment unto Mordecai, and the king's servants, and the people of the king's provinces do know that whosoever, whether man or woman, shall come into the king's inner court, who is not called.
So Esther's saying, I can't. Esther's saying to this man, I can't go into the king's inner court. I mean, I haven't been called in. Now with the king's inner court, you had the king's gate, you had like a path in between, then you had like another gate, and through there was like the inner court. Now you couldn't just go up in there. That's like someone just walking up in your house. So you couldn't just walk up in there. You walk up in there, and the king possibly could put you to death for it. It's like someone just walking up in your house. Like you have your front door. People ain't supposed to come past that front door without your permission, man. So that's what Esther was saying. The king ain't called me in the inner court for 30 days. I can't just walk up in there. What if I walk up in there and I get put to death if the king hasn't sent for me? Go ahead.
There is one law of his to be put to death.
There's one law of what?
There is one law of him to be put to death.
So Esther's saying, I can't just walk up in there and just go and say that. What if he doesn't call me? If he doesn't lift up that gold scepter, I'm going to be put to death because I can't just walk up in the king's court. Go ahead.
Except such to whom the king shall hold out the golden scepter, that he may live.
So if you go up in there and the king holds out the golden scepter, that means you live and you get to say your piece. But if you're in there and the king don't hold out that golden scepter, you ain't supposed to be in there. You're supposed to be put to death for it. You can't just walk up in the king's place without permission and so forth. Go ahead.
I have not been called to come into the king these 30 days.
So Esther's saying, I can't just walk up in there. The king hasn't sent for me for 30 days. This king hasn't called me for 30 days. I can't just walk up in there. Go ahead.
Verse 12. And they told to Mordecai Esther's words. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not with thyself that thou shalt escape the king, so that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all Jews.
So Mordecai was saying, why are you just thinking about yourself? You know that there's a decree to murder all the Jews, and you're just thinking about yourself. If you don't go in there and try and do something, it's not just you who's going to die, all the Jews are going to die. So that's what Mordecai was saying. Go ahead.
For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time.
He's saying you can't hold your peace at this time. He's saying there's a decree to murder all the Jews and you're going to stay silent. You're worrying about you can't go in the inner court when there's a decree to kill all the Jews and you're worrying about that. He's saying you're going to hold your peace at this time and all these Jews are going to die if you hold your peace. He's saying you go in there and say something. Go in there and try something. Go in there and try and save this nation. Go ahead.
Then shall there enlarge and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place.
Go ahead.
But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed.
So it's time that if you don't go in there, thou and thy father's house is going to be destroyed. The Israelites is going to be destroyed, man, if you don't try and speak to the king and tell him what's going on with Haman. Go ahead.
And who knoweth whether thou art come in the kingdom for such a time as this?
Go ahead.
Then Esther bade them return Mordecai this answer.
Go ahead.
Go, gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, and either eat nor drink 3 days, night or day.
So Esther told him, you know what, fast and do this, neither eat or drink for 3 days. Go ahead.
I also and my maidens will fast likewise, and so will I go unto the king, which is not according to the law. And
she said, you know what? So she thought about it. She said, you know what, Mordecai, that's true. You know what? Fast and so forth, and I'm gonna go to the king. I'm gonna go in the court where I'm not supposed to go. I'm gonna go. It's not according to the law, meaning it wasn't according to the law for people to just walk up in the king's in the court without being called. So she was saying, you know what? I'm gonna go in there, and if I perish, I perish. Meaning I'm gonna go in there and try, and if I die, I die. But at least I tried to save my people. That's what Esther was saying. Kind of like today, our women nowadays are taught to be selfish and only think about themselves. So they wouldn't go in there and try to save black people. They'll be like, you know what? It's every man for themselves. They'll be like, It's alright, I'm not going in there. But Esther was a sister that was down for this nation, man. She went up in there, she was willing to lose her own life. She was talking about she's willing to perish. So she goes, it's not according to the law. She knows she weren't allowed to go up in there, but she still went up in there. Go ahead.
So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther had commanded him. Verse 5. Now it came to pass on the third day that Esther put on her royal apparel.
So Esther put on her royal apparel, man. Esther put on that royal clothing. Go ahead. Go ahead.
And stood in the inner court of the king's house.
So Esther went into the inner court. Now, this is the part where Esther was saying she's not allowed to go unless the king calls her. So Esther put on her royal apparel and she went into the inner court. So she put on that beautiful clothing, probably done her hair good, done everything good. So the king can see her and see her beauty and, you know, raise up that gold scepter and be like, yo, Queen Esther, what would you like? So she done herself up, man, put on that royal apparel. Go ahead.
Against the gate of the house.
Go ahead.
And it was so, when the king saw Esther the queen standing in the court.
So the king saw her standing in the court. The king was sitting on his throne and seen her in the court. Go ahead.
That she obtained favor in his sight.
And she obtained favor in his sight because Esther was fair and beautiful to look upon. So this king seeing her, this king's like, damn, she's fine, man. This king ain't gonna not raise the scepter so she can die. This king's looking at her like, damn, this sister's fine. Go ahead.
And the king held out to Esther the golden scepter.
And he held out the golden scepter, meaning once he holds out that golden scepter, you get to say your piece and so forth. Go ahead.
That was in his hand.
Go ahead.
So Esther drew near and touched the top of the scepter.
Go ahead.
Then said the king unto her, what wilt thou, Queen Esther?
So the king said to her, so Esther, what would you like? Go ahead.
And what is thy request?
Go ahead.
It shall be given thee to the half of the kingdom.
Go ahead.
And Esther answered, if it seem good unto the king, let the king and Haman come this day unto the banquet that I have prepared for him.
So Esther said, you know what? If it be good to you, king, let you and Haman come to this banquet that I prepared. A banquet is like you could say a party, a get together, a dance off, food, or so forth. Go ahead.
Then the king said, cause Haman to make haste, that he may do as Esther hath said.
Go ahead.
So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared.
And the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared, man. Esther prepared some food and so forth. Go ahead.
And the king said to Esther at the banquet of wine, what is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request?
So at the banquet, the king asked, all right then, what's your petition? What's your request? And it shall be granted thee. Go ahead.
Even to the half of the kingdom it shall be performed.
Go ahead.
Then answered Esther and said, my petition and my request is.
So now Esther's going to say a petition and a request. Go ahead, what she wants.
If I have found favor in thy sight of the king, and if it please the king to grant my petition and to perform my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I shall prepare for them.
So her request was for the king and Haman to come to the banquet that she's prepared for them, man. Meaning some food, some wine, some sit down and whatnot. Go ahead.
And I will do tomorrow as the king have said.
Go ahead.
Then went Haman forth that day joyful.
So Haman went forth that day joyful, man. Because Haman's right hand man under the king, and he sees it as damn. Esther's prepared a banquet for me and the king. Haman's feeling important now. Haman's feeling special. He's feeling, damn, Esther wants me at the banquet. Because she's meant to be fine and beautiful. And Haman's thinking, damn, she invited me. Go ahead.
And with a glad heart. But when Haman saw
he went with a glad heart, man, meaning he was merry, he was happy, excited that Esther's invited him for a banquet. He don't know why she invited him to the banquet, but when we read on, we're going to get to that. Go ahead.
But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood not up, nor moved for him.
And then Haman was leaving, and he saw Mordecai in the king's gate. Mordecai was sitting there. Mordecai must have just looked at him like that and just looked back away like. Haman expected him to stand up and bow to him, but Mordecai weren't doing it, man. Mordecai didn't give a damn about Haman, didn't show Haman no respect. Mordecai knew about the decree Haman sent out, so Mordecai ain't gonna respect him or reverence him. Go ahead.
He was full of indignation.
He was what?
Full of indignation.
He was full of indignation, man, because Mordecai didn't stand up and bow to him and kiss his ass. Mordecai didn't do none of that, so he was full of indignation. Go ahead.
Against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman refrained himself, And he went.
Hammond refrained himself, man. Hammond probably put his hand on his sword and had to tell himself, you know what? I'm not gonna chop this nigga's head off in the in the King's Gate. Go ahead.
Coco.
Oh yeah, those one. Yeah, I remember those one in there.
Nah, I think you want
Yeah. Go ahead.
And he sent and called for his friends and Zeresh, his wife, and Hammond told them the glory of his riches.
And Hammond called for his friends and his wife, man, and told them the glory of his riches, man. He called for them. Hammond's talking to his wife and his friends and telling them, yo, I'm right hand man under the king. I'm this high up in the kingdom and that high up in the kingdom. Is telling them what's going on, how he's up there. Go ahead.
And all the things wherein the king had promoted him.
And Hammond said, you know what, I got a promotion from the king, and I'm high up. I can call shots. I can say things and make things happen and make things not happen. Go ahead.
And how he had advanced him above the princes and the servants of the king.
Go ahead.
Hammond said, moreover, yea, Esther the queen did let no man come in with the king unto the banquet that she had prepared but myself.
So Hammond's gassy said, yeah, and you see Esther, that beautiful woman, guess what? She's prepared a banquet and no one else ain't allowed to come. Just me and the king's gonna get that banquet. So Hammond, he's getting all excited, thinking, yeah, man, probably thinks Esther even likes him or whatnot. Because she's invited just him to the banquet and nobody else. She's got Hammond feeling like he's good looking and whatnot. He's going telling everyone, oh, he's invited to the banquet. Go ahead.
And tomorrow I am invited unto her also with the king.
And he's saying, I'm invited unto her also with the king. Like that's like in the UK, that's like you getting a letter from the queen. What's the queen's husband's name? What's his name? I don't remember his name. What's his name? She got husband. She got a husband.
Is dead? She has. She's dead.
I'm sure, man. He ain't dead yet. He's almost dead. He's always in that hospital. Ain't his name Philip?
Yeah, that's right. It's
Philip, innit?
Yeah, it's Philip.
Yeah, that's like you getting a letter from Queen Elizabeth and Philip, man. That's like you getting a letter from Elizabeth and Philip, and they inviting just you round. Out of everybody else in the world, you're gonna be gassed. You're gonna be taking pictures of the invitation, putting it on your WhatsApp picture, your Facebook profile picture, telling everyone, yeah, I'm going to dinner with the Queen and Philip. That's what Hammond was doing, man. Go ahead.
Yet all this availeth me nothing.
What verse you at?
13.
Yeah, go ahead.
So long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate.
Go ahead. And he hated seeing Mordecai at the king's gate, man. All of this good stuff that he was going through, he hated sitting Mordecai there that don't respect him and don't reverence him. Go ahead.
Then said Zeresh his wife and all his friends unto him, let a gallows be made 50 cubits high.
And a gallows is it's like a wood frame, like it's wood like that, and then you have a rope on it and you hang people from it. So they said, let a gallows be made 50 cubits high. And they said, you know what, let a gallows be made and then hang Mordecai from the gallows. So they wanted to hang Mordecai from this gallows, which was 50 cubits high. So they started to make this gallows. Go ahead.
Tomorrow speak thou unto the king that Mordecai may be hanged thereon.
Say what?
That speak to the king that Mordecai may be hanged thereon.
So they said, all right then, speak to the king that Mordecai may be hanged on the gallows. So Haman's like, yeah, I'm gonna speak to the king now. I'm gonna get this nigga hanged, man. He's disrespectful. You don't want to reverence me. You don't want to show no respect. Go ahead.
Then thou go in merry with the king unto the banquet.
So what they were saying to him, hang that nigga and go to the banquet, man, and have some fun, man. Go in happy, drink some wine and so forth. Go ahead.
And the thing pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made.
And Haman listened to the idea and said, you know what, that sounds like a good idea, you know. And then he caused the gallows to be made. So he called the people under him and said, you know what, make me a gallows, make it 50 cubits high, because his plan was to hang Mordecai from this gallows. Go to Esther chapter, read Esther chapter 6.
Esther 6. On that night could not the king sleep.
So it's saying on that night the king couldn't sleep. You know some nights when you're in bed tossing and turning and you can't sleep. Go ahead.
And he commanded to bring the book of records of chronicles, and they were read before the king.
So the king couldn't sleep that night. It was tossing and turning in bed. Sometimes, Craft, you know, you're tossing and turning. Nowadays, you pick up your phone and you go on WhatsApp. You see, like now you're tossing and turning in bed when you can't sleep. That's what the king was doing, man. So he called for these records to be brought, the records of chronicles. So he caused them to be brought and someone to read them to him. Go ahead.
And it was found written that Mordecai had told of Bigtha and Teresh, the two other king's chamberlains, the keepers of the door, who had sought to lay hand on the king Ahasuerus.
Now, it was tossing and turning that night, man. You know, there's definitely the Lord in it, where it's tossing and turning, and that night is tossing and turning. He couldn't sleep, he called for the records, and then when he's got the records of his two chamberlains that wanted to do harm to him, and they got hanged on gallows also for wanting to do harm to the king. Go ahead. And then when he read them records, he found out that Mordecai was the one who found out that they wanted to kill the king. Go ahead.
And the king said, what honor and dignity have been done to Mordecai for this?
So the king found out that Mordecai is the reason why those two chamberlains didn't get to kill him. So it goes, what honor was done to Mordecai? What did Mordecai get for doing this deed by sparing the king's life, to say? Go ahead.
Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, there is nothing done for him.
And they said there's nothing done for him. Like nothing. So Mordecai done that and he didn't get no reward for it. Didn't get nothing for it. Go ahead.
And the king said, who is in the court? Now Haman was come in the outward court of the king's house to speak to the king to hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him. So the king read the records, and he saw that Mordecai is the reason why his two chamberlains didn't get to kill him. And then now here comes Haman. Haman's coming into the court to speak to the king in order to hang Mordecai. But at this time, the king here, he found that Mordecai saved his life by letting it known to Esther that the two chamberlains wanted to kill the king. And Haman was coming in here. Now this is after the king's just read the records and found out this. And then now Haman was coming in to try and get Mordecai hanged, trying to get the approval to hang Mordecai. Go ahead. Verse 5. And the king's servant said unto him, behold, Haman standeth in the court.
So the king asked who's in the court, and Haman just came in, so they said Haman's in the court. Go ahead.
And the king said, let him come in. So Haman came in, and the king said unto him.
So before Haman got to say to the king, can I have your approval to hang Mordecai from the gallows? The king asked Haman a question. Go ahead.
What shall be done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor?
And he asked Haman, what do you think should be done unto the men whom the king delighteth to honor? Go ahead.
Now Haman thought in his heart, to whom would the king delight to honor more than myself?
So Haman was a proud bastard, man. He wanted everything. Haman thought the king was talking about him. Haman thought, you know what, the king's talking about me, so I'm gonna say all these nice things, so I get all these nice things. Haman thought all this was about himself. Go ahead.
And Haman answered the king, for the man whom the king delights to honor, let the royal apparel be brought which the king uses to wear.
So Haman's all thinking, this is about me. Haman's thinking, let me get some of the king's royal apparel. Let me get some of the king's royal clothing. Go ahead.
Let the royal apparel be brought which the king uses to wear, and the horse that the king rideth upon. And
Haman's saying, Haman's playing smart. Haman's thinking this about him, but he's pretending it's not about him. So Haman's saying, yeah, man, I'll give him the king's royal apparel. I'll give him the horse that the king rides in on. Go ahead.
And the crown which is set upon thy head.
And he's saying, you know what, I'll give him everything, you know. I'll give him the crown, I'll give him this, I'll give him that. Go ahead.
Verse 9. And let this apparel and horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes.
He's saying, let this be delivered to one of the king's most noble princes. And Haman, he thought he was the king's most noble prince, man. Go ahead.
That they may array the man with all whom the king delighteth to honor, and bring him on horseback to the street of the city.
It says, bring him on horseback through the street of the city, meaning let this man be seen, let people know who this man is. Because Haman was saying all this because Haman thought it was him. Haman had visions of him being brought through the streets with a crown on his head, the king's royal apparel, the horse that the king rides on. Go ahead.
And proclaim before him, thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delighteth.
And Haman was saying, yeah, that's what you should do to that man whom the king delighteth, because Haman thought this was about him. Go ahead.
To honor. Then the king said to Haman, make haste and take the apparel and the horse, as thou hast said.
So the king said, yeah, that's a good idea, man. Make haste and take the horse and the apparel like you said. Go ahead. At this time, Haman must have had a smile on his face, thinking, yeah, man, I'm going to get all of this stuff. Go ahead.
And do even so to Mordecai Do even so to Mordecai the Jew.
And Haman, he must have heard her do all this to Mordecai. Haman's face must have dropped, man. Haman's smile must have turned into a frown right there, because he thought all this was for him. And then the man that he hates so much, the man that he was coming to the king to speak of to hang, he was coming in to hang. He was coming in to get get Mordecai hanged. And then for the king to turn around and say, yeah, do all this to Mordecai, give Mordecai the horse, the royal apparel. Haman's face must have dropped. Haman must have said, hey, Mordecai, the man who I've come in here to tell you that I want to hang. Go ahead.
Who sitteth in the king's gate.
Go ahead. Verse 11, let's go to verse 11.
Verse 11. Then took Haman the apparel and the horse.
Because it was the king's orders, Haman has to follow the orders of the king. So Haman's face must have been miserable. You know when you tell someone to do something and they're moving all slow and so forth. That's what Haman must have been doing, moving all slow, with his bottom lip hanging all miserable or moody. He didn't want to do it, but because this is the commandment of the king, he has to carry it out. Go ahead.
And brought him on horseback to the street of the city, and proclaimed before him, thus shall it be done unto the man that the king delighteth to honour. And Mordecai came again to the king's gate, but Haman hasted to his house mourning.
So Haman hasted to his house mourning, man. Meaning Haman ran off crying, man. You see how that man runs off crying? What's that man's name in Friday and runs off crying? What's his name? Red. Yeah. You see how Red runs off crying in Friday? That's how Haman must have ran, man. Haman ran to his house exactly like that. Mourning, go ahead.
And having his head covered.
Man. Haman was distraught. He thought he was going to get the king's crown, the horseback, the royal apparel. He thought he was going to get all of that. And then when he heard, okay, then go do this for Mordecai, he's thinking, hey, do this for Mordecai. Because he looks at Mordecai like, Mordecai's just a nigga that needs to respect me. And because he don't respect me, I'm going to show him that he should respect me, so I'm going to get him hanged. And then when the king said, do all this for Mordecai, he was mourning. Go ahead.
And Haman told Zeresh his wife.
And Haman went home to his wife. Haman went home to his woman. Go ahead.
And all his friends, and told all his friends everything that had befallen him.
So he went home to his woman and his friends and told them everything that happened. Go ahead.
Then said his wise men and Zeresh his wife unto him, if Mordecai of the seed of the Jews, before whom has begun to fall, thou shalt not prevail against him.
So it says one of his wise men. So one of his wise men knew something, man. One of his wise men knew you can't harm a Jew without the Lord stepping in, man. Read that again.
If Mordecai be of the seed of the Jews,
and Mordecai is of the seed of the Jews, so one of his wise men was telling him, you can't harm one of them Jews. Go ahead.
Before whom thou hast begun to fall, thou shalt not prevail against him.
Because he's the seed of the Jews, man. And Mordecai's God is the living power. So you ain't going to prevail against him. That's what one of his wise men was telling Haman. Go ahead.
But shall surely fall before him.
What?
Shall surely fall before him.
And it says, but you shall fall before him. That's what Haman's wise man was telling him. Now this one of Haman's wise men, he ain't a Jew, but he's telling Haman, yo, you don't want to mess around with them Jews, because you ain't going to prevail against them. You're going to fall before him. You know why? Because their God's the living power, man. This wise man understood that. He understood about the power that we serve. Go ahead.
And that Esther, verse 14, and while they were yet talking with him, came the king's chamberlain and hastened to bring Haman unto the banquet that Esther had prepared.
So while they were talking to him, one of the king, they hasted to bring Haman to the banquet that Esther had prepared. What chapter is this? Jump to Esther 7:1. So they came to bring Haman to the banquet that Esther had prepared. Go ahead.
So the king and Haman came to the banquet.
So it says, so the king and Haman came to the banquet, man. This is the food and stuff that Esther prepared. Go ahead.
With Esther the queen. And the king said again unto Esther on the second day of the banquet of wine, what is thy petition?
So he said, what is thy petition? Like, what is it you want, Esther? Go ahead.
Queen Esther, and it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? And it shall be performed, even to the half of the kingdom.
So say to Esther, okay then, at the banquet now, Esther, the king and Haman is asking, so what is it you'd like? Go ahead.
Then Esther, the queen, answered and said, If I have found favor in thy sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be given me at my petition.
So Esther saying, basically, let my life be given at my petition, meaning Esther was ready to die to save her people, man. Esther come to the king, and she's gonna tell the king what she wants now. Go ahead.
And my people at my request.
And what?
My people at my request.
So Esther was willing to lose her life for the request that she was about to make to this king, man, for her people. Now, most women wouldn't do that for their people nowadays. They wouldn't do that. But guess what? This was a down sister that done this for her people. Go ahead.
Verse 4. For we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed.
So Esther saying, you know what? Because we are sold. Now Esther. Now before it said Esther didn't declare her kindred. So now she's here declaring her kindred and so forth to the king. So she was ready to die, man. Go ahead.
For we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain, and to perish. But if we have been sold for bondmen and bondwomen.
So she's saying, but if we had been sold just to be slaves, go ahead.
I held my tongue.
So she's saying, if we was just sold to be slaves, I would hold my tongue and we would just serve out our slavery. She said, if it was only going to be slaves, I'll just serve out my slavery and I'll just hold my tongue. I wouldn't even say nothing. But because we're not only going to be slaves, people want to destroy us and kill us all throughout the provinces from India to Ethiopia. Go ahead.
Although the enemy could not countervail the king's damage.
Go ahead.
Then the king Ahasuerus answered and said unto Esther the queen, Who is he?
So the king's asking, alright, then who is he? Because she said her people are going to be destroyed and killed, but if she was only going to be a slave, she would hold her tongue. So the king said, alright then, who is he that wants to destroy you and your people? Who is it? The king's asking, who is it? Go ahead.
And where is he that does presume in his heart to do so?
And she goes, where is he that presumes in his mind to do so? Where is he that wants to kill you and your people? The king's asking, who is he? Where is he? Because this king's got power to call the shots. This king's got power to say go and say to say yes and say no to whatever throughout the provinces which he reigns over. Go ahead.
And Esther said, the adversary and the enemy is the wicked Haman.
The enemy is what?
The wicked Haman.
The enemy is what?
The wicked Haman.
And they was at the banquet, man. Haman must have dropped that wine glass real fast, man. When you heard that, when Haman heard this at the banquet, because Haman thought he was going to the banquet to have fun, and he probably thought Esther liked him, and out of everybody else thinking, yeah, she chose me out of all the people on the face of the earth. I'm going to be at the banquet with Esther and the king. So he was all gassed and excited about it. His friends and family was excited for him. He went there excited. Go ahead. And then now she's mentioned Haman is the wicked one that wants to destroy her and her people. So I'm assuming, it doesn't say he dropped his wine glass, but I'm assuming he dropped his wine glass at this moment. Go ahead.
Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen.
It says Haman was afraid before the king and the queen, meaning Haman feared for his life. You know why? Because Haman knows if the king commands that Haman's meant to be put to death, he'll be put to death. Go ahead.
And the king arising from the banquet of wine in his wrath.
And so the king arose in his wrath, meaning the king got up mad. Like the king stood up mad. Go ahead.
Went into the palace garden.
And the king stood up mad because he was so angry. He walked into the garden. He walked into his palace garden, which is outside. Go ahead.
And Haman stood up to make request for his life to Esther the queen.
So as the king went that way to the palace garden, Esther went that way, and Haman followed Esther. He was chasing Esther, like trying to plead with Esther, to plead for his life, because he knows that Esther found favor with the king, and the king's going to side with Esther. So Haman's trying to plead with Esther for his life, begging her to save his life and so forth. So as the king's in the garden, Haman's following Esther around. Go ahead.
For he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king.
And he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. So he saw, okay then, this king's looking to kill me. The only person who can stop this king from killing me is Esther. So he's gone to Esther to try and speak to Esther, to try and get Esther to get his life spared, because he knew Esther had favor with the king. Go ahead.
Then the king returned out from the palace garden.
So the king, he came back from the palace garden. Go ahead.
Into the banquet of wine, and Haman was fallen upon the bed whereon Esther was.
So the king came back from the garden. Imagine you come back from the garden and you see a next man on your bed with your woman, man. That's what the king saw. So the king come back from the garden. He went in the garden, and Haman followed Esther. So Haman's trying to speak to Esther, get Esther's attention, tell her, look, it's not like that. He's trying to, spit game and trying to tell her to say to the king to spare his life because you know she had favour with the king, and if she said to the king, don't kill him, chances are the king wouldn't kill him. So he's on the bed trying to plead with her, probably all grabbing her up and saying, come on Esther, go ahead.
Then said the king, will he force the queen also?
So the king came from the palace garden and said, hold on, will you force the queen? What's he trying to do? Go ahead.
Before me in my house?
He said, will you force the queen? Hold on. The king's basically saying, alright then, you're on my bed with Esther in my house. What are you trying to do? Like what's going through your mind right now? Go ahead.
As the word went out of the king's mouth, they
what verse you at?
8.
Yeah, go ahead.
They covered Haman's face.
It says, as the word went out from the king's mouth. So as the word went out from the king's mouth, because the king has chamberlains, meaning men who were under him. So a word went out from the king's mouth, meaning the king probably said, come and take this guy away. Come and take him out of here. And they came and they covered his face. So they put something over his face. Go ahead. Verse 9.
And Habanah, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, behold, the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman has made for Mordecai.
So one of the king's men said, there's a gallows which is 50 cubits high, which was made for Mordecai. Because remember, at this time previously, Haman was going to the king to get the go-ahead to hang Mordecai from the gallows, which was 50 cubits high. So the chamberlains is coming here and saying Haman has a gallows which is 50 cubits high, which was going to hang Mordecai from. Go ahead.
Circa, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who had spoken good of the king, standeth in the house of Haman. Then the king said, hang him thereon.
Hold on, what did the king say?
Hang him thereon.
And the king said, okay then, Haman made this for Mordecai. Well, go hang Haman from it. And they hanged Haman from the gallows that he made to hang Mordecai. So the gallows that he had made, he got hanged by his own gallows, man. Said is right, man. Go ahead.
So they hanged Haman on the gallows.
Go ahead.
That he had prepared for Mordecai. And the king's wrath was pacified.
The king's wrath was pacified, meaning the king was calm after that, because Haman got hanged to death, man. Let me get to the 1 second, let me go to what chapter did you just read?
7.
Let me jump down to get me the part where it mentions Purim, so people know why. Actually, get me the part where the king changed the decree. You know what part that's at, where the king changed the decree? Because the decree was to destroy all the Jews. Get the part where he changed it so that they didn't destroy all the Jews. And he sealed it with his ring. It's probably in about, let me see if I can find it.
It's 13.
Yeah, it's verse 13. Esther 9 and 13.
Esther 9 and 13.
Yeah, read that for me.
The copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, that the Jews should be ready against the day to avenge themselves.
No, I think this. That's not Esther 9 and 13. What new? 8 13.
8:13.
No, 9 and 13. Go ahead.
Esther 9 and 13. Then said Esther, if it please the king, let it be granted to the Jews which are in Shushan to do tomorrow also according this day decree, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged on the gallows.
They said that Haman's 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows, man. Because Haman wanted our people hanged, so it's only right. Haman's family gets hanged, man. Go ahead.
And the king commanded it to be done.
And the king what?
Commanded it to be done.
The king commanded it to be done, meaning the king signed for it and said, yeah, I want that to be done. What next part do I want? Get me...
17.
Is it 17? Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
On the 30th day of the month, Adar, and on the 14th day of the same rested day, and made it a day of feasting and gladness.
And made it a day of what?
Feasting and gladness.
Made it a day of what?
Feasting and gladness.
And that's why Purim's a day of feasting and gladness, because where we was meant to be destroyed and wiped out, we didn't get destroyed and wiped out, because Esther went and spoke to that king. And today is a day of feasting and gladness, man, when Haman and his 10 sons got hanged, man. So that could have been us on them gallows, but it wasn't. So Purim's a day of feasting and gladness, man. Celebration of life, because we was meant to be dead. But because of what happened, we celebrated, we call it Purim. Read on.
25.
Yeah.
But when Esther came before the king, he commanded by letter that his wicked device, which he devised against the Jews, should be turned upon his own head, and that he and his sons should be hanged on gallows.
And they was hanged on gallows, man. So instead of us dying, our enemies died. Instead of us being destroyed, our enemies was destroyed. Go ahead.
Wherefore they call these days Purim.
They call these days what?
Purim.
They call these days what?
Purim.
And this is why we celebrate Purim. We celebrate Purim for that reason, man. Because we was meant to be destroyed, but we wasn't destroyed. Our enemies was destroyed. They was hanged on gallows and so forth. Go ahead.
After the name Pur, therefore all these words of the letter of that which they had seen concerning this matter, and which had come unto them, the Jews obtained and took upon them, and upon their seed, and upon all that joined themselves unto them, so it should not fail that they would keep these 2 days.
They would what?
Keep these 2 days.
And it says that they would keep these 2 days. And this is why Purim, we don't Purim. This is why Purim's 2 days. Yesterday sundown, today sundown, man. That's why it was live streaming yesterday and today. Celebrating Purim, feasting, eating, drinking, coming together, making merry. Go ahead.
According to the writing that they appointed time every year.
According to what?
Every year.
And this is why we celebrate Purim every year as a 2-day feast, man. Because we were supposed to be destroyed, but our enemies was destroyed. And with that, we're up on the time. We say Shalom. We'll be back on Wednesday. With that, we say Shalom, and that's the breakdown for Purim.